Welcome back to yet another episode of Branded Intent. My name is Brian,
My name is Jay.
and together we are bringing our experience from different facets of content creation and creating this podcast to help budding content creators, maybe that entrepreneur that knows he needs to put a little more content out into the world. But this show is designed and being recorded and produced, hopefully, to help you get over some of the hurdles a lot of people face. Jay, what are we talking about today?
Today we are drilling in on authenticity and branding, being true to your values. If I can get that out of my mouth. Sorry.
So, Jay, what are we talking about today?
Oh God.
You know,
We'll figure it out
authenticity,
sometime. We'll find it.
authenticity is paramount. So many people are worried about creating content. And I'm like, look, if you're being you, everything's gonna be fine. Just like in real life, some people like you for you, some people dislike you for you. It's the same in the webosphere, if you will. So if you're trying to portray yourself as somebody you're not, eventually cracks in that armor are going to happen, and you're going to upset the harmony of your audience.
Right. And I think what's intimidating about that is you do have to put yourself out there a little bit. In the same vein of, yes, there's going to be far more opportunity of for people to naysay or respond to you in a negative light. You're going to have that much more opportunity to interact with people who are going to celebrate you. Like I've said before, humans, we're all humans here. We all operate emotionally. We operate off of fear or joy. And for survival, I mean, this is definitely prehistoric for us. It's primal. We remember painful scenarios more than we remember scenarios that we needed to celebrate. So this is a big thing that most people wrestle with, opening yourself up. But you need to do that. You really do need to do that.
You know what? Before we get started down this road,
Mhm.
I want to preface with this: hurt people hurt people.
Mhm.
And that is something I first heard listening to Pat Flynn. And these people that lash out in comments on the internet, they're hurting from something that they've experienced in their life. So instead of taking their words to heart and as criticism, I feel empathy for them. And I'm like, I wish there was something that could make their life better so they wouldn't feel like they had to do this, but I dismiss it.
See, I want to feel empathy for them. It's very difficult for me to. It's like, dude, you visited my page
Yeah.
to spend 30 to 40 seconds to then spend a minute or
Yeah.
two or whatever, however long it took
Yep.
to give me negativity.
Yep.
It's hard for me to
to
turn the other cheek on that.
I worked on a project with a young lady, and her core values and the brand message that she was portraying was that of community, love, support, encouragement. And if somebody left a negative comment or posted something that was self-serving, it was delete and banned. And it was plain and simple. Being true to her brand
Mm-hmm.
and being authentic to her values for her audience, there was no warning, there was no you can't do that, there was you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked really, really well for her and grew a very, very loyal audience, which was awesome.
The difficulties I see with that, though, just right off the rip, let's say you do blow up, you become another Gary V, Alex Hormozy, or the Tate brothers. They blew up immediately off of launch. You're not going to be able to scrub everything. There's a certain point in which you do not have time, and it is not worth your time to scrub all the negative comments. I'm at a point where I have more than enough time to scrub those comments. But if you find yourself at that point where you cannot clean each piece of content of the negative comments underneath, you're going to have to lean on your brand a little bit to control that narrative.
That you are. And it's one of those things. Don't let a perceived fear of what others may think, say, or do stop you from creating content, from sharing your brand story, especially if it's uplifting. You know,
Mhm.
people deserve to hear your story if it can help them throughout their life.
Right. So, I mean, we're talking, we're highlighting the importance of authenticity. Um, no one has lived your life. No one has experienced your life but you. That does not mean that your pain points haven't been universal, though. So, um, speak on what you know. Speak on your experiences. Speak on what and how you would like or have in the past um, grown beyond, overcome those pain points, and I guarantee you will have far more loyal of a following and interactions than if you tried to drum up some random story.
Most
I
definitely.
can't talk about being an NBA player. I'm 5'7", never. I can't shoot a 3-pointer to save my life.
Right.
So for
Right.
me, to talk about anything basketball, it'd be disingenuous. And I mean, there's no stock in what I'd say at that point. So
Absolutely. And that that piece of wisdom that nobody's lived your life, you know, there are people that wouldn't want to live my life. There are people who want to live somebody else's life, but we're on this journey, or I should say we're on our own journey, and it's, you know, at the end of the day what we make of it. So definitely, definitely do not let what others say influence the journey that you're on. You've lived your life, you have your authenticity, you have your values, you have your mission. Go forward, spread the joy.
And just as a disclaimer, we did kind of focus a little bit more on the personal branding side of that spiel, but same thing applies for corporate. You know, if you are working on a startup, it's a little bit more ones and zeros as far as defining what your mission, vision, values are, but stay true to those. You know, your guys' experience as a startup, as a company, there are other companies that will have similar pain points, but they won't have the same exact experiences because they don't have the same people at the same time, right? So just keep that in mind. It is a little more contextual, but overall, authenticity is huge. One example of of an event that failed to deliver on its promise for its customers. Do you know what I'm about to say?
I think I do, but it was a little young for my
Right.
taste, but I
Okay.
remember it in the news if it's the one I'm thinking about.
So even if that actually drives the point home, it's a
Mhm,
little young for your taste, right?
mhm.
Firefest. Everyone knows about Firefest. If you don't know about Firefest, it just perked something. It rang a bell in your head, and you don't know why you don't know Firefest. Now, Firefest, this was early 2010s, right? So, festival lifestyles. These are, EDM, that's Electric Daisy Carnival, and a bunch of other festivals, concerts, 3, 5 days, Coachellas. Um, this was right in the full swing of that. Now, there was this group of kids that decided they wanted to have their own festival on an island that you had to be boated to. And because it had to be boated to, they decided to put a luxury price point on it. I think entry level tickets were at 3,000, and that was without any tents. So you had to pay for rentals for tents. Um, and then that's also not including food or alcohol or anything. So a lot of these people ended up spending upwards of 10K with the promise to be able to experience an island party with all of their favorite artists at that time. Um, everyone shows up. Everyone's already paid. Artists don't show up. There's 2 porta potties. There's 3 tents. The person who ran that event, nowhere to be found. Um, right now, there is a documentary on Netflix about Firefest trying to do that for the second time, and no one would buy a freaking ticket
I should
because,
hope not.
yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, fool me once, right?
Right.
So that same concept of delivering on your promise, being authentic. If you mess up, I've messed up quite a bit.
Own it.
I'm still pretty green in my career compared to a ton of other people. A ton of other people have had a head start on me, but in the times that I've messed up, own it. It goes a lot farther. And with the content and with the information that I share to my experience, and I try to reflect on my experience level enough to where I'm giving my customer the best possible outcome for working with me.
And you know, in alignment with Firefest at a much smaller scale, but it has the same result. When creators come to me and I'm coaching them or helping them produce content, I stress the importance. If you say this is going to be a weekly show, you better produce 52 pieces of content a year. If
That's a lot.
it is,
It's a
it
lot.
is, it isn't,
Well, if you batch it, yeah, I
if
totally
you
get it.
batch it, it's not as bad. However, there's things to happen in life.
Mhm.
I was on my way to work not too long ago and was in an accident. I was still able to get here, but I was in no shape to run a show that day. So what I did is I called the host and said, "Look, dude, this is the issue. I'm going to download one of your older, better episodes and we're going to rerun it." Which is what we did. And the audience isn't disrupted by no content. And this goes back to when I was a kid. Fonzie, he was coming on TV Thursday night, every Thursday, and we looked forward to it. And people that produce YouTube videos on a regular schedule or podcasts on a regular schedule, that content, the audience for that content is expecting that show. When we decided to do this show, we went seasonal, 4 seasons a year. Each season is 3 months, but we're only producing 10 episodes. So we're going to have a short hiatus in between. But that was vocalized on episode 1. It's shared in the description of our podcast. So people, if they take the time, are going to understand that. So when there is a break, and episode 10, we're going to be sure to remind everybody, that we'll be back this date, this time.
Yep.
And as long as you're true to your word, that communicated word, and you deliver that, your audience is going to be more accepting. And yes, things happen. People get sick or whatnot. But we pre-record some evergreen content that can be thrown in if the worst happens. This gentleman here travels quite a bit, and we're not always going to be side to side in a studio, which is fine, but we're going to have to create some episodes. So if, he's in Fiji and a storm blows through and there's no power to run internet, we still have a piece of content to put out.
You weren't supposed to tell him about Fiji.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If he were in Kenya and a lion ate the telephone pole, does that happen?
No, not that I know of. No, and this is just to expand a little bit of what Brian was saying. So just on content piece, right? So if you do have a YouTube channel or you have a podcast, so it's very specific, right? And you aren't able to produce something fresh for that week, you can do a highlight reel of of the last 5, 6, 10 episodes that you've produced if you've been on schedule, all speaking to the same concept that or highlighting the same concept that you were going to do that week, right? So today we're talking about authenticity. Now, in our previous episodes, we've definitely touched on it, but we haven't gone as in depth.
Right.
We're a little rambling right now, but it's fine. But you could bootstrap a way to still provide or make good on your promise, even though you aren't able to produce it in the way that you want it to. It's just at least do the bare minimum just to show up
Absolutely
for your customers.
So moving on to aligning your brand with your values. We spoke about Rolex in a previous episode, and if the brand is luxury, do you think Rolex will ever produce a watch with a plastic body?
No,
that would damage their brand.
Yeah, they would use precious metals, alloys, just they're definitely not plastic.
Right.
I don't know if there's a luxury plastic out there.
Not that. So Elon, we have a challenge for you. But that's your values in your brand. And just as they would never produce a watch with a plastic battery, you can't use an excuse to not produce the level of content, if not higher, that you're producing and that your audience is used to. And that goes with your message, that goes with anything that you're doing, because it can damage your brand.
So yeah, I think everything should be aligned. Your values, mission, brand, logo, everything needs to support each other. Each of these pillars are standalone by themselves, but they do not hold up the roof alone. So you need to be able to build these each pillar strong enough to stand alone, but also strong enough to work together. They
Right.
need to work together. So
Can somebody come back from a misstep?
yeah, yeah. Depends on the depth. Logan Paul. Some would say he came back. He's definitely come back as far as revenue is concerned.
Mhm.
But there's still a very strong negative emotional reaction when that name gets brought up. And I don't know if you guys know who that is. There's a very prevalent YouTuber back in the early 2010s. Um, Ended up going to Japan for one of his series on his YouTube channel and made a couple knucklehead decisions that actually nuked his entire career for a few years.
And to the point, I used to somewhat watch him back in the day.
Yeah, he was
And
entertaining. He was a knucklehead.
yeah, and when
Yeah.
he did what he did, the lack of humanity and empathy that he had for somebody's family,
Mm.
unbeknownst to him, it I never watched him again. And when he
Yeah.
came back, and now I'm a boxer, and now I'm this, and it's like, okay, I'm glad he's doing good, but he's not my cup of tea.
Yeah. His name's known, but
Right.
it's nothing's aligned, and
Right.
that's the issue with
Right.
those. I don't want to talk bad about, but like just those brothers in
Yep.
general, you know. So
But because of what he did,
Mm.
I'm out,
Yeah.
which is fine.
So, going back to authenticity, negative comments, content production. If you are not aligned, if you are not authentic, we've seen this happen before. We know what doxing is. Content consumers sometimes end up being online detectives with nothing but time on their hands. So if you try and string a story together that doesn't support your brand story or didn't actually happen, um, it's not that hard for people to call bullshit.
Right.
It's not that hard anymore. You need to have timestamps. You don't have timestamps already. Public opinion, you're full of it. So be authentic. If people don't like you, they don't like you. I wouldn't say be abrasive unless your brand is abrasive, in which case, by all means, be 40 grit sandpaper. But yeah, do everything in your power to be authentic. Good example, once again, Gary Vee. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a person of integrity. He seems like he talks only of his history, of his experiences.
Right.
He talks about his mom, he talks about his dad. Those are very vulnerable relationships to speak on a public setting, especially as big of a platform that he has.
Yeah.
He only talks about what he knows, as far as I know, right? And it comes across that way. So if you are going to be communicating in any facet, authentic is the way to go.
100%. If all you tell is the truth, you don't have to remember what lie you told to keep it going. So,
one more. I feel like I'm kind of steamrolling this episode.
no, go for it, man.
One more example, and this one's a personal one for me. So, I currently am based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. I moved there back in 2021. Yeah, 2021. Back in May. Now, that first October, I actually had a contract with. Oh, I forgot their name. That's not good. Bad JJ. It was the pumpkin patches, local pumpkin patches, and they have pumpkin patches and Christmas tree farms everywhere. It is the same company. But I had a contract with them for the month of October. The contract was you walk in, set up your booth. You have to be there every day, prime hours. If you are not there, then the booth needs to look like everything else in our lot. It needs to look like it's ours. That's fine, easy enough. But the promise that I made to the customers was, if photo shoot starts at $20, upwards of 35, I believe. And I'm the type of person that if I shoot a bunch of photos and I like a lot of them, I'm just going to give them to you regardless what you paid. But the $20 was, you got 2 to 3 photos, you and your kids, pumpkins if you have them. If not, then they're dressed up, whatever. It was more of a family celebratory thing to just remember a point in time. Did fairly well. Ended up doing, I think we successfully concluded over 440 photo shoots for that month. I had a couple of photographers under me. And out of those 440, I I think my Yelp account, we only had 15 reviews and like 4 of them were negative.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to get people to give you reviews, by the way. That one's hard. But it's very easy to get negative reviews. Now, the negative reviews came from my delivery email falling into their junk folder or spam folder. So they never got that until after. But I had timestamps, and I actually, in the Yelp reviews, I'm not one to argue, but I did say, hey, timestamps, this is when it was sent. I'll send this over to you again. We gave you 5 photos here. Let me go through and give you a couple more.
Right.
And it's still on Yelp. So if you end up looking J. Patrick Imaging, should be based in Las Vegas, you'll be able to see that. But that was a point where, at least for me on a very personal note, I felt I don't like feeling like a failure. I don't like feeling responsible for other people's failures. It was my name on it. It was my contract. It was absolutely my responsibility. So being authentic, that was what saved me. And that was actually what helped me sleep at night during that.
And you know what? No matter what you're doing, if you're doing it in a public forum like the internet, social media, there are going to be people that are going to leave a negative review, even though you did everything you said you were going to do. And we just have to anticipate that. And we have to approach it, in my opinion, with empathy. We've made mistakes. We own up to them quickly. We do our best to offer make goods. We'll go above and beyond, spend the midnight oil to make it right. And sometimes they accept it, sometimes they don't. And if they choose to leave a negative review, completely understood. I know in good faith, I did everything I could to make good on what I said I would deliver. But we've all had a bad day, and we've all walked into our local market and somebody said hi, and we're like, yeah, hi, or
go away.
We're just not in a place to accept that pleasantry. And you have to think the people that are watching your content or receiving your goods and services, you know, they might be in a bad place too. We don't know what their day was like when that came in the mail or that hit their inbox. And, you know, they might be lashing out emotionally on you because you're the first thing they saw in your inbox or mailbox. So again, people are emotional and they act on emotion, and we can't control that, nor should we try. Therefore, we shouldn't let it affect us.
Right. The thought that I would like to sign off on that piece is straight A students rarely graduate with 100% in their classes. They rarely get every question right on every test, every piece of homework. Doesn't mean that they didn't get an A. So
that's right.
So yeah.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. We look forward to next week. Jay, do you know off the top of your head what we're talking about next week?
No, but I can pull this up. Get me
target audience, understanding who you're speaking to.
That one's a big one.
This one's a big one. And this one, I'm really excited for this episode. So join us next week. We're going to be talking about the ideal customer avatar, who's consuming our product, and what we can learn from them.
AI. I know that's kind of a hot topic. This would be a good one to listen to and you know, back your way into learning how to use or leverage AI for your own brand.
Yep. Once again, I'm Brian Colburn. If you want to know more about what I'm doing, my link is in the show notes below. Check us out on accountables.network. Jay?
Yep. My name's Jay Alba. If you want to learn more about any of my courses or you want to communicate, collaborate, you can find me at jayalba.com or Jay Alba Jr. at most social media platforms.
Sweet. We will see you next week.